All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody. This is the Annapolis Environmental Commission. This is our May 26th meeting, and we are very happy to welcome Mayor Gavin Buckley here with us tonight. And we wanted just to let him speak a little bit and do a good conversation with him, have a little back and forth with him. I will take roll call right now. I see that we have Ann Stevenson, Allison Colden, Jeremy Hansen, and myself here. So we do not have enough members present right now to approve our minutes. So if we get somebody on later, will join us. Well, actually, Randy just joined us. So we have 5 people. So we do have enough people to approve our minutes. So I'm hoping you all got a chance to read them and let us know if you have any corrections. Does anybody have any corrections to the minutes?
No, I move to approve the April minutes as written.
Right. I just have a question. I think Kate Bohannon joined us late at the last meeting and she's marked absent in the minutes. So I have a question about that. Does anybody recall? Okay. And also down in the tree canopy report section, the notes say we had a 78.5% net loss. That sounds way too large to me. So I think we need to check on that before we approve those minutes. So I don't know if anybody can check on that.
If I can check the report. We have it in the Google Drive while the mayor starts.
Okay, sure. And then we can approve them later on in the meeting. All right, thanks. So we'll just put a hold on those minutes and move to our next item, and that is to welcome Mayor Gavin Buckley. We just wanted to give you a few minutes or however long you would like to discuss your environmental priorities and projects coming up. And then we'll open it up for some Q&A and talk about our priorities.
Well, thank you so much for letting me be here. I regret I had more come and talk to you, and I can tell you when I ran for office, I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to spend some time with the boards and commission. And I'm learning on the job. I've never been in politics before. I had to win, trust in the environmental community. I hope you guys, judge me by my actions. So I'm here more to sort of work with the group to work out how we can get to the same place. I know that we all have the same values, same principles. Many of us all have children. We all have to look our kids in the eye and say that we did something different, that we left this planet better than the way we found it. I believe we have some of the strictest environmental guidelines in the state, and I'm proud of that. And I think our voting record in the city council shows that. So every day we look at things through an environmental lens, and Jackie Godd has been a great addition to the mayor's office and to the city manager's position to make sure that nothing slips by. I think that we're working on things on a regular basis, but there is always room for improvement. There's always things that we don't know and that I need to learn and I need to be educated on. But I think, climate change obviously is the biggest thing, and that the whole country, the whole world is looking at now, and how that affects waterfront cities. We have the waterfront as one of our greatest assets in the city of Annapolis, but it is also our greatest threat. I came into office pretty early and came up with a short-term solution for the sunny day flooding that we experienced that affects us and affects our way of life in the city. And a short-term solution that has kept Dock and Conduit Street dry and passable for the last year or two. A midterm solution to the City Dock flooding that I inherited that we plan to make improvements on. And then there is the long-term vision for City Dock, which is the raising City Dock part and with the Naval Academy. What I think is going to be so important for this city is that for all those people that don't really believe, maybe don't believe in climate change or question that they generally do believe in the military, and we know that the Department of Defense is working furiously to protect their assets throughout the country. And one of those assets is the US Naval Academy, and they have become a very essential partner in our strategy to combat the rising tides. So we think that is going to put a great lens on the project in this city. We think the way we financed it, the way we have collaborated with many stakeholders to come up with a product that achieves multiple things. Not only a beautiful public space and a gateway park to the Chesapeake Bay, that is going to be an inclusive park, but also a barrier against those weather events, the next Hurricane Isabel, and also a way we can filter stormwater. I know that one of the issues with the midterm plan I inherited was, why would we redirect all our storm drains and not use that opportunity to create some filtration there? I think we should be looking at that now. Before, when I came into office, there was challenges on the funding, but because we have been creative in how we fund this project, and because we're going to fund this project without having to go to the local taxpayer to achieve a dynamic result, I think that the door is open now for us to look at those options. Again, we have obviously on the Compromise Street side some real estate issues because we only obtained a small piece of property to put the pumping station in, but we definitely have better opportunities on the Dock Street side. So that is obviously, I can talk a lot, but I'll just summarize and say, the City Dock is going to be, one of the biggest things that we do in the city. I, contrary to what you read, are working on more water access for this city than has been done since Ellen Moyer, and I stand up for Ellen Moyer a lot because I know Ellen fought for the environment, for the arts, and definitely fought for water access. And the street end parks that we all get to enjoy today, really, I would give credit to her administration for. But this administration is moving on Hawkins Cove, on obviously making sure that we can pick up a water taxi at the South Annapolis Yacht Center. We are going to get Wells Cove across the line in some form. We are going to save Carrs Beach. I truly believe we're going to save the last piece of land there and stop it from being developed and create a great dynamic heritage park there. We are working on.
I just want to interrupt. Can you tell us a little bit more about Carrs Beach? Because we really haven't heard about that yet. Your plan there.
Yeah, sure. So I was with Rob Savage at an event at Bay Woods, and there is a 6-acre parcel of land next to Bay Woods, in between Bay Woods and Chesapeake Harbor. That project has been in the works for 6, maybe 10 years, right? Right. The property owner is a gentleman called Theo Rogers. Theo Rogers is a lawyer who was the adopted son, sort of the adopted son of Willie Adams. The reason Carrs Beach was because of a gentleman called Willie Adams, who was, a famous businessman, gangster guy that had different business interests, but he had a company that bought property and developed property. He has since passed away. That land and that estate has fallen to Theo Rogers, and Theo Rogers was moving forward to develop a 44-unit development on the site. The neighbors didn't love the project. I was kind of in the middle because we don't have any African-American developers I ever see come to the city, and I was going to fight. He designed it with good stormwater controls, with public access. It was a better project than we'd seen.
Right.
Um,
We had just gotten a presentation from them like 2 months ago, so. Yeah.
So I went to him and I said, would you consider not developing this property if I can make you whole, if we can get you a profit in the front end, not the back end? And obviously, he's passionate about that history. We're all passionate about the history. And he the next day ordered a valuation, and we've come up with a number. It's 5, 6, 7 million, some number like that, some huge number. But I think that there's a lot of makeup that on an equity point, position. There's a lot to make up for in the park system, right? And that. And so this project, if we develop it in a certain way, build a park in a certain way, really ticks a lot of boxes. It's an amazing piece of modern history in the city of Annapolis. So I went to work with Theo, then went to Joel Dunn at the Chesapeake Conservancy. They went to work. They brought in the same team that acquired the land at Quiet Waters Park. So they are working, and now we have state interest. When we did the mural christening the other day, we had the Lieutenant Governor there. I had his ear for a while to talk about it. We have our state delegates and state senators working on it. We obviously have Lisa Rodvian, very passionate about it. So we have multiple layers of government working to save this piece of land for development. And what will be so amazing about it when we save it and we create a water access point and we preserve a piece of beach, or we enhance a piece of beach, is that we can connect it to the Ellen Moyer Park, and kids that are on camps on Back Creek will now be able to go from Back Creek, and we'll do some traffic calming and some good connection across Edgewood Road, and they'll be able to actually put their toe in the sand and go to a beach. So I'm very excited. We can get the Maritime Museum to do the fundraising in terms of improvements and build a pavilion there, and we can do music events there. So really, it'll be another great asset for that community and for this city. And when we build out the piers on the slips at the Maritime Museum, as is proposed, you'll be able to come from the city, hopefully on electric ferry. That's what I'm working on, and get off at Ellen Moyer Park and then walk across to Carr's Beach, and that will be a great experience. And there'll be lots of stuff to do on that trip. So there's connecting all our 4 creeks and waterways and creating flow between them is a big priority for me. Just the same way I'm on the water, just the same way I'm trying to do that on the land, where we're creating trails for walkers and bikers and runners where cars can't be on them. So that's kind of that's that in a nutshell. And I definitely can take questions on that if anybody has.
Yeah, go ahead. Questions from the commission. So that was the Bemby Beach development that we just heard about like 2 meetings ago. So did anybody have questions about that? Just go ahead and unmute yourself. I'm not looking at raising hands.
I spoke with Joel Dunn and Mark Conway from Chesapeake Conservancy. I had a Zoom meeting with them last week, and I had mentioned them coming on. That they should. I mentioned them possibly coming on to one of these meetings to talk about what they're doing. So, is that something that is an option, or is anyone else interested in having them come on?
Oh, sure. I am. Yeah. I'd love to have them on. I'm making a note of that, Randy.
And Mayor Buckley, I'll just add, as Bevan said, we reviewed that Bemby Beach development project and provided a lot of comments back to planning and zoning a few months ago on behalf of the commission. And I think that one of the things that we tagged along with our comments was recognizing that there are some really important sensitive habitats in that area, specifically the wetland that's there, and then one of the few opportunities to really adapt to climate change and rising sea levels by leaving a waterfront parcel undeveloped. So from that perspective, I think that I'll speak for myself, not for the full commission, but just saying that I'm excited about the prospect, not just for the public access aspect of it, but also as serving as a demonstration of, how we can make the city more resilient through just planning for that sea level rise and developing in smart areas.
Yeah, I'll second that because what Allison and her reviewers have pointed out was wetlands need to migrate upland as the water is rising, and there wasn't, with the development there wasn't really any room for them to migrate inland, and to keep providing that valuable function. And I also wanted to mention that Land and Water Conservation Fund dollars should be used for that. So we should go get them. That increased by 30%. From the federal government, and also the BRIC. We should look into the FEMA BRIC funding, and that's resiliency, pre-disaster mitigation, pre-disaster resiliency. So that might be two good federal funds to look at. And then, of course, the stimulus funds,
And can Joel reach out to you on that, Bevan?
Oh, sure. We just had Joel talking at one of our Governors Association's land conservation webinars. So yeah. I'm happy to invite Joel to talk to us about this.
I really think we're going to get this done, so I'm very excited about it.
Yeah,
so
great. Thank you. Kudos.
One other question I had, I didn't hear much talk about the most vulnerable populations to coastal flooding and coastal issues in regards to the flood basin or the flood plain, as well as the kind of disaster preparedness plan for potential major catastrophic water influx, because I really firmly believe that a lot of the attention, the allocation of funding, the emphasis in this entire project and in this entire entity should really be to really target that population first, and make it known in that regard. You know what I mean? In the plan, in the rollout of some of these things, I really think that should be at the forefront. Because
Right,
what is the plan?
Right. So you're talking resiliency as a whole, right? And not
Well,
just
yeah, but most
project.
vulnerable populations as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But moving on from this project. So I think
Right.
we'll
Well,
let the mayor finish because I think I cut him
Yeah.
off. So yeah, let him finish and then we'll see if he hits on that. And if not, we'll continue with that question.
I think that environmental justice is has been one of the most overlooked things when it comes to the environment. So we know that the people that are going to suffer the most with climate change and with catastrophic events are people that have the least resources. So we, in a small way, we're looking at creating microgrids at Newtown. So, we obviously are going to have what we do at Hawkins Cove is going to be designed from the community. So the community input there has been key. That's kind of why the city got a little bit involved, because we see environmental projects happen around the city and we don't see much involvement in the community. So I've been very intentional. We started a small little pilot program called Greenworks Annapolis, which is a way to get kids involved in the environment. We will be working with Kenyatta on that because, like Joe Biden said, there are a lot of jobs out there. There are going to be a lot of jobs, that, maybe you don't have a traditional education for them, but they're still good jobs, and we want young people to get connected to the environment. So our Greenworks program of Annapolis is kind of a spin on the OAC's Green New Deal. The WPA was a Roosevelt thing that put unskilled people working throughout the country to rebuild the country. We're going to have to build the country to prepare for sea level rise and becoming carbon neutral or whatever it is, whatever aspirational thing we have to do to save the planet, we must make sure we're inclusive when we design things. And so I think this administration recognizes that. My office, recognizes that. But we're always up for new ideas. We're always up for creativity. We have these little mini certifications we give to kids. We just did a cleanup over on West Street, on a sensitive area next to the Lighthouse Liquor Store, which we must have cleaned up, 10,000 bottles. So we still only put a dent in it, but barely put a dent in it. But at the very least, we put kids off drinking. So it was a good project. But we have more of those on the way, and we're looking forward to doing more things with you, Kenyatta. I learned a lot from you. So.
Yes, sir. And I have want to reference a paper that I want to submit to the commission. Maybe I'll do that after this meeting, because I don't see I can't really type in the chat here, but I would plug it in. But it's from Lori Harris. She's an associate professor at University of Maryland, environmental science, and she also works for the Chesapeake Biological Laboratory. And she recently did a paper on some of the implications and impediments to coastal development as it relates to environmental racism and stuff. So I'll share that to you all after the meeting, maybe in an email.
I think that I feel we are doing plenty of things that people are looking at in this city. I don't really have any list of things here, but the taking on the fossil fuel industry, that's a pretty big statement. It might not be anything that ever comes about in my tenure, but at least we've laid the groundwork, like in the tobacco litigation. I want to thank Jackie for leading us on that, down that path. We have the strictest. We are holding people to higher stormwater standards than has ever been historically done in the city. Our tree standards are higher than anyone's in Maryland. I always get frustrated when I read stuff in the paper about what the county's doing, and of course I'm a big supporter of the county, but I feel like we've and because of people that are on this committee, we're ahead of those places in terms of what we're doing for the environment. So I'm with everybody on this call. We in support of making our waterways pristine, working on the multiple things that you guys work on every day. I don't think I'm not a person that you can see what development has happened on my watch. It has not been overdevelopment. I am dealing with development that was approved before I came here, but I'm not anti-development. I think we have to have thoughtful development. We have to make sure that development pays for infrastructure and helps us improve the infrastructure that sometimes we can't afford to do. So I'm looking forward to the next 4 years, after this 4 years, to keep working with this group. I want to make sure that I communicate more often with you and try to get more on a regular schedule. I mean, it has been a crazy 3.5 years. I really thought, you'll have tons of time on your hands to get to meet people and spend time with people, but it doesn't work out that way. So I sometimes need a prod or a push to get on. So I, again, apologize for not getting to this committee more often or before. I'm going to be very intentional from here on as we get to the other side of COVID. I wanted people to think this is a green city. I take people to the solar park pretty much every weekend. I ride my bike with different thought leaders and different leaders to show them that, we have this, the largest solar park on a brownfield in America. That's the thing that we touted when we cut the ribbon 2 years ago. Now, I can't take credit for that solar park, and I didn't try to take credit for it. I had Mike Panlides there. I had Alan Moyer there. or I had Mike Connolly's dad there. But we should be proud of something like that. You know, that should be part of our identity, but no one really knows about it, you know. I'm working to get the message out of all the things that we are doing that make us look like a green city. You know, I want us to have that reputation, and I want people to come here and work with us on creating that identity for the city. But I can keep talking on other things, but I feel like I've been all over the place. So if you have some specifics you want me to focus on, I definitely would like to hear that more and write things down.
One specific is that, you know, there's an opportunity with the Chesapeake Research Consortium in order to get some of this data that you may need in these projects in regards to Hawkins Cove or Carrs Beach or any of these developments, to help make the case. You can use some of these interns from Chesapeake Research Consortium, which do environmental work for government agencies, which the city of Annapolis is a government agency. And so far, you know, they basically partnered with NOAA and Chesapeake Bay Program and EPA. But essentially, you know, they could come in and these HBCU student interns that are doing environmental work could capture some of these data through their project descriptions that may help build or make the case for some of these funding allocations or developments or what have you, in regards to some of these developments. So if I were, that would be my 2 cents on that. I had talked to Bevan about that before.
Did you talk to Jackie about that? I know Jackie's on the line, so I'm not sure if Jackie has interns this summer. Do you have any interns, Jackie?
I do not. I am familiar with the Chesapeake Research Consortium. I've met with them before when they've had proposals to gather data for Anne Arundel County and for the city. I can talk to Randy more about what he's thinking about.
That'd be great.
Right, and I think the environmental commission too can pull them in when we are doing letters or looking at developments and things like that, and see. I mean, we should all think about where we can plug them into whatever legislation's going on or things like that too.
I mean, we have a ton of interns running around the office right now. It's obviously been challenging lining it up, and when we weren't sure where we were going to be with COVID, but we just, you know, we sort of edged them in, and then now there's quite a lot of them in the mayor's office. So I think, you know, the city will be kind of officially back on its feet and open to the public around the 4th of July, you know, before or after. So I think we can start to think about those interns and bringing people in, because I think it's an exciting time to be in the city, you know.
All of the interns right now are all virtual and have been since last year. So that's another, you know, plus kind of in this regard. But yeah, so probably by next year, they may be back. But mostly, you know, being government agencies, they're all pretty much sticking to virtual. It's only a couple that are actually working in the field for CRC right now. So.
I just want to take a minute and continue on of what Randy started about the, you know, looking at equity and justice and opportunities that the city could help provide for our communities that haven't been involved in environmental work or environmental jobs and things like that. So Randy and I brainstormed a whole huge list of ideas for the city, not intending for the city to do every single one of them, but we need to just finish up that letter and get it to you all. But I mean, one of the ideas was, you know, really intentionally reaching out to our Black and Brown community and getting them involved in some of the environmental groups, and even, you know, asking all the local groups that do projects to take on some of these, you know, young people to learn during the summer, and maybe paying them a stipend too. So we have a whole list for you, to review and, you know, look at and find out what's possible. But, and also Randy mentioned the resilience plan. So how are we going to help the most vulnerable people who, you know, are maybe hit the hardest and then will have the hardest time recovering. So right now we don't have a resilience plan. We've been working on the comp plan, And, I know Jackie is working on a resilience plan and we've offered to help too, but we haven't gotten anything in writing, or we haven't, really worked on that yet, but that's.
Yeah, we'll be doing that. I'll be working with you on that next. I've been working more with planning and zoning on their comp plan. And I think that's where, the Environmental Commission has provided some input onto that as well. I think we should get that piece of it done before we turn back to the resilience plan, because some of the suggestions that this commission forwarded to Eric, he thinks he should weave into. So I think he'll be getting back to you on that.
Okay.
And I think Chief Simmons has a framework of some things on resilience as well, I think so.
I think it's super important for those resiliency things to be woven throughout the comprehensive plan. So even if the plan is not sort of ready for prime time, Jackie, I hope that, you're able to at least get the key points to the people that need them, who are working on the comp plan. I know when our group and the commission looked at the comp plan, those were some of our biggest comments in terms of protecting those protective habitats and climate change resilience were all in the vein of what we're looking at. So hopefully if it doesn't come before, if it has to come after, at least those elements are making it in a comprehensive way. It's a comprehensive plan. Bevan, I had one other thing, if you don't mind me.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, Jackie, did you have?
Oh, no, I did ask Bevan whether those slides and the information you presented to Eric were sent to planning and zoning.
Believe they were, but I can check on that.
Okay, because I didn't receive them
Okay.
either. So if you could forward them to me and to Eric, I was going to follow up with Eric on those, because I thought that information was really captured well, and was a good starting point for me to work that in with him.
Okay.
The one other thing I wanted to touch on briefly, Mayor Buckley, is the tree canopy report that was presented to us last month or a few months ago. I found that really helpful. I hope that your staff is finding that helpful as well. I mean, the biggest takeaway from me, obviously, was that we're not really meeting the no net loss goal and sort of trending in the wrong direction based on that. I understand that new legislation has been enacted since the end of that, the end of the time series that's included in that report. So hopefully that is helping reverse that trend. But one of the things that we heard from Brian Adams was just struggling with the lack of capacity in terms of being able to do evaluations of trees, to maintain trees, to keep the invasive species under control. So I'm sort of curious, what plans you might have, or what are some different ways we might be able to increase the city's capacity, because, as quickly as we can plant trees, we will continue to lose them if invasive species and just poor stewardship practices cause us to continue to lose mature trees as quickly as we can get them back in the ground.
I think it's, I've fought for every tree that I could, right? So I haven't, and that report, a lot of that damage was done before I got here. Our standards now are really, really high, but, there's still people that are doing the wrong thing. We just, they're moving these trees kind of early morning. They're getting the same company to do the evaluation that does the removal, so that has to change. We need to increase the fines. So I think that is going to be something that Rob Savage and I will be working on together. And then, it is disturbing to see us go backwards. I think that we need more staff. And so, vote for city councillors that don't cut everything. Vote for councillors that, there's some perception here that there's like this just government fat everywhere. We all of our departments are stripped to the bone. There's not a surplus of employees anywhere. There's no one sitting around doing nothing. But I definitely think that we need to add some capacity to those departments, because what they do is so important. So, he's a one-man show, but he can't be everywhere at once. And so I would appreciate you guys pushing some of the other councillors on that, so that we can help Sally's department and get some more capacity in there.
Mhm. And I think we could also, Allison was mentioning the invasives on the trees. So we've seen a lot of trees that are covered in vines, and that's killing them. So I think we could be a little creative too, and see if we can get the DNR's Conservation Corps to come out and clear areas, because I know some of our local restoration groups do that, and DNR is just right down the street, and I know they have conservation corps all over the state. So
if you can identify some specific areas, I can go to work and be a great
okay.
when we did the last Greenworks program thing, we paid the kids $100 Amazon card, and they loved it. We could have paid them a $50 one, they still would have been really, really happy, and we could have had twice as many doing it. But it's not only is it a way to pay kids and get them connected to the environment, but a way to make them care about it. And it definitely opens your eyes to so much stuff. So if you cite some areas,
Sure.
and we start out with a test case, and a test area, and then we can start, move around the city.
Sure. Okay. And Randy, you were going to mention something?
What was I gonna say? I was gonna say. I was gonna say that I recently, also a few weeks ago, talked with the county councilman and his environmental person. I think his name is I can't remember his name.
Matt Johnston.
Yeah, and we talked, about furthering our kind of deeper in our relationship, because as we know, our sustainability issues don't stop at the end of our county lines or city lines or state lines. All of our efforts seem to overlap. And that was one of the things that Arlington County did that gave them the reputation of being the Copenhagen of America, one of the more greener places in the country, which is not far from here. But what they did was they coordinated all of the local governments to come together and have monthly reports or bi-monthly reports where they would compare data, compare resources, compare grants they're going for, compare different aspects of some of the things that activities, because it was like people, just different agencies working in different silos. So he seemed to be in support of that. So I just wanted to put it out there and maybe hear you all's thoughts about the potential aspect of someone, representatives from the county's office and the state office, bi-monthly, just reporting out in our AAC meetings about environmental sustainability, resiliency, outcomes, and kind of factors.
I was just with Chris Trombauer a couple of hours ago, right? So, we're in a good moment in history now for the county and the city. We couldn't have a more environmentally sensitive person pulling the purse strings in the county than Chris Trombauer. We couldn't have a greener county executive than Stuart Pittman. So, we have a really, the stars are aligned for the stuff, but we got to make the asks. And, I obviously communicate with them, but, I think that's a good idea, Kenyatta. So let's work.
Yeah, because we're at a very historical moment in time, because if we can, and I talk about this in one of the other, with some of these younger environmental professionals, about if we can somehow manage to save the Bay, make the Bay, have these outcomes and achieve these things, the Chesapeake Bay being, the largest estuary in the world, will become a example to the world on how they can manage some of their waterways and their environmental outcomes in regards to sustainability. So throw that out there. Just
Well, I
make a
think
conversation, but yeah.
that's why, we're so excited about the partnership with the National Park Service. The fact that the National Park Service wants to have such a significant presence in the city of Annapolis and put its footprint on the whole bay, and then, fight for the Chesapeake Bay being our Grand Canyon. So making our Chesapeake Bay a national park, I mean, that takes a lot of statewide coordination, but we're very excited to be part of that. And, this is going to be their home. So we think that's going to add to our efforts and really, work on that. Exactly what you're talking about, Kenyatta.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Other questions or comments? I have a few, but I want to let you all jump in. Paul Murphy has his hand up. Go ahead, Paul.
Sorry for my tardiness. So you may have spoken about this already, but as Randy's speaking, coordinating among different entities, any quick update on the creek cabinets? Or I think you came up with a different name, but that was more city oriented with the creeks, but obviously they flow into the rivers, which flow into the bay. In the last couple of meetings, I haven't heard much about it. If it's appropriate, maybe a quick update on that.
But I'm not sure when our next one is scheduled, Jackie. Do you know when that is?
I'm trying to schedule it right now with your calendar for June. So we should be having a meeting in June. And to your point, Paul, yes, one of the reasons why we have Severn River Association and Severn River Keeper and the Arundel River Federation as members of the Waterways Cabinet is because those water bodies are not only in the city, they're also in the county. Pollution in rivers and don't obey jurisdictional boundaries. So more to come. You haven't heard much from that group because during COVID they only met once. So I think I reported. I think they met twice in the spring and in the fall, and I gave those reports. So it's been a while since we've met. So we met last. So I think spring, fall, and then in January. So we're overdue for a meeting right now. And I do regularly communicate with Matt Johnston, and I've known Stuart Pittman and Chris Trumbauer for many, many years. So we are always coordinating on the work that we do, and especially with regard to the Resilience Authority. Oh, that's something you didn't mention, Gavin.
Yes. So we are debating the Resilience Financing Authority. So I am a little nervous because the city is, a couple of city councillors are deciding whether the city should go on its own in the Resilience Financing Authority. And, the county brings a ton of capacity to this. We get to choose the funding mechanism, but we definitely don't have the resources that the county has. And, and this Resilience Financing Authority, for any of you that don't know, was born in Annapolis and started here and then taken to the county and then taken to the state. It had to have enabling legislation. And we passed with a majority, just a few people voting against it, because we have created a mechanism for every municipality in the state of Maryland to find a way to help fund what they need to fund to make their cities resilient. Right? And so some cities have already started funding their authorities. We are still finalizing the details on ours. I think it wouldn't be a good idea for us to not stay with the county. And I know people are worried about the politicization of it, but we can build in the protections on that stuff. They are being very generous with us. The city is only a 10th, roughly, of the population of the county, or less than that. And they're giving us a third of kind of the say on things. And I do think that, Chris, Dan Neese, all the people that are working on this, Sarah, are hoping we don't snatch defeat or whatever that term is at the last minute, because we're this close to getting it across the line. And I'm hoping that, you know, we don't make the wrong decision, or we don't sort of lose that opportunity of having a solid partner in the county.
Yeah, so that the legislation was just referred to us on Monday. So I did have some thoughts about that. And when you mentioned earlier that, I think you mentioned it earlier, and you said we're creating a, you know, a funding authority, and so the taxpayers won't have to pay for this. But it's very clear to me that when you create these authorities, and they do have power to charge a fee, and I know the city council has to approve that fee, but that's where they get their operating costs, and that's where they get their, you know, revenue, so they can float bonds. So I think it's really misleading for you to tell residents that they're not going to be paying for it, because we absolutely will be paying for it. So, I mean, I just had a quick look at that. And also I'm a little concerned that the legislation doesn't have any requirements for who is being appointed to this authority. So, I mean, that can quickly become a political patronage job. And it also says that the people who are appointed to it can be paid. So, I mean, there's more requirements right now to be on our commission than there is to be on this financing authority. So that really concerns me, but we will review it and give you our take on it. But I think, you know, I've seen, you know, the newspaper say this, I've seen aldermen and women say in the newspaper, the taxpayers aren't going to be paying anything for it, but it's not going to be a tax, it's going to be a fee. So taxpayers don't care. When it's coming out of their pocket, they're paying for it.
But Bevan, you're mixing up. The Resilience Financing Authority is one thing. The City Dock plan is a different thing. So the predominant way that we are financing the City Dock is a P3 from the garage. So that partnership, that private-public partnership, has generated enough money to not only do the garage, but also do the City Dock project as well. So whatever money we can raise through Resilience Financing Authority, and when we say the taxpayer in terms of that, what I'm saying is if it was a hotel tax, it was a 0.5% or 1% on the hotel tax, that's not directly going to the city taxpayer. That's going more to the tourists. But I'm not saying you wouldn't be affected, you're still going to affect. But what we're saying is the deal that we've struck and the partner that we have that was selected to build the garage and do City Dock has a revenue model that means that they can cover both the garage and City Dock. So whatever grants we get afterwards, whether we get federal resiliency money or whether we get money from the Naval Academy because they are a candidate for us to get grants from, or whether we get money from the Resilience Financing Authority, every bit of money we get there takes the amount of money we use down from the deal and leaves it in the pocket of the city, you know.
So I wasn't talking about the City Dock plan. I'm just talking about the Resiliency Authority. And with the City Dock plan too, I you know, there's a little bit of funding, you know, they might be able to cover the garage rebuild and get the fee from that. But our revenue from that used to also cover our transportation too. So now the taxpayer is going to be covering the transportation that's not covering. But I wasn't talking about that. I'm only talking about the Resiliency Authority.
That's not true. So we are going to make sure that all of that is covered. So, okay. You know, and it hasn't been finalized yet, but the revenue numbers are solid, right? And the term of the deal is solid enough to cover all those things. So I wouldn't say that if it wasn't true, right? So, you know, there's some semantics where we could say that, but we understand that the garage is the supports transportation. The company that we selected is very has a lot of experience in mobility. Mobility is in their title, and they knew that had to be an important piece of what they were bringing to the table. So we are, you know, it hasn't all been finalized, but I can tell you, you know, there's never been a project like this where of such magnitude that we haven't had to use city funds to get to achieve. And so,
right. So maybe you think I'm mixing them up because the article the article that I was mentioning, that I was reading, and maybe that's what you mentioned earlier when you were saying the taxpayers aren't paying for the resilience, but you weren't talking about the Resilience Authority. But the article
Yeah.
and in the paper about the Resiliency Authority, Alderman, and you were quoted as saying that the residents aren't going to be paying for this. So, or taxes aren't paying for this. And specifically, like, I guess it's, taxes aren't paying for it, but a fee will be paid by the
And that
residents.
what
So,
that fee is. So that if it was an increase in your water bill, then the taxpayers are paying for that. But that's not what my preference is, a percentage on the hotel tax. So that is my preference, and that to me is not directly affecting the residents of the city. So that's my preference, but that still hasn't been decided on.
okay, well, that's not in the legislation, so it doesn't say how it's going to. And then articles from University of Maryland Finance Center pretty much indicate that residents are charged a fee to operate these authorities. That's how they usually are operated. I mean, I'm familiar with the one in San Francisco for transportation, and there's one up in Pennsylvania for stormwater, and that they charge residents a fee, and that's how they have their operational funds, and that's how they're able to float bonds and things like that. So
I think, Bevan, that some of the articles have confused things a little bit when they talk about the operating funds for the Resilience Authority, and that's what you're talking about, a fee that's charged to the residents for the operating authority. And then the articles also discuss how the projects will be funded. And that's where I think the point is to be made, that the projects, the intention is not to have the residents pay for the projects, that the private investment and other ways that the Resilience Authority can raise the money will pay for the projects. And I think that gets kind of commingled with the operating funds for the Resilience Authority. I think that's where the confusion lies.
right, and so what I'm familiar with when you create an authority for projects like this is the fee does pay for both. So and so that's not clear in any of the articles or what anybody's saying. So
I agree. Yeah. So
or the legislation it's silent on that. So
but the intention was that this authority could bring in private investors and other kinds of, they could seek grants, et cetera, to fund the project.
it's always matching for the grants. Grants. So
I think that the articles sometimes confuse it a little bit, and it's confused in the mind of the public a little bit. We need to make that clear.
All right, thanks. So I see, Ann, you have your hand up, and then
Yeah. Okay, great. I was just wondering, Jackie, I saw that you wrote the staff report for the legislation, and I wondered if we could sort of take this offline and you could give us more of a briefing, or if you have a PowerPoint that goes with the legislation or something else that we could look at just to clear it up as we consider our comments on the bill. That would be super helpful. And maybe that's another meeting, or maybe we could have a sort of informal subcommittee meeting just talking about this.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Thanks.
I think that'd be a great idea too. And look, I'm not an expert, so definitely, but let's get the numbers people in, so, we can give some assurances. We're just trying to get another tool in the toolbox. Whatever happens, we got to pay for this stuff, whether we like it or not, and how we pay for it is the challenge, right? So we think this is, we believe this is a good initiative, and it's a work in progress, and we're going to enjoy working on it with everybody here to finalize it.
right, thanks. Hey, Paul.
Yes, one quick question. What's the approximate fee from the garage that goes towards funding our city dock? I'm a fan of user fees. It's a balance in everything, but user fees on high volume areas is a pretty easy way to create money. About how much from our parking garages go to city dock programs?
So I think Jackie could probably get you real numbers on that, Paul, but the basic principle is these guys get a ground lease, build, manage and operate it and get all the revenues. They're going to pay us the upfront number before the deal starts when we get to a certain point. So we are going to get 20 million, 50 million, some number like that upfront. And then we can go and chase other money as well. And then, you know, it's really about how we manage that chunk, right? So we'll be using that money for transportation, for the things that we need to do.
Right.
But we are still in the middle of working out all those details. But it's a healthy number. So, but I don't have it in front of me. So
That's okay, Gavin. I'm definitely not looking for specifics, but am I understanding you by saying the city receives an upfront fee or big chunk of money, but no recurring revenue from the parking garage? Is that correct?
yeah, so it will
Okay.
see an upfront money, no recurring, and I don't have it exactly, but it will receive the asset back. So it'll own the improvement at the end of the ground lease.
No, that
So-
sounds good. Okay.
So, and the garage is built in such a fashion that it can be converted into offices or apartments when we're all being driven around in driverless Ubers. And, you know, and we don't need as many parking spaces anymore.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. I had one more question, if I may, Bevan or
Sure.
whoever. And this is far less detailed, Gavin. I'm much more up your creative alley. City Dock, particularly Ego Alley, you know, you walk down there and the cleaner we make the bay and the rivers, the cleaner Ego Alley is. But still, there's obviously a ton of cigarette butts and wrappers and dust and junk that's float in there. So I've only been a fan of the C-Bin project for about 7 years, but Gavin, as you speak, the National Park Service, and I'm bringing up, and more people are understanding how important oysters are, and you see in front of Eastport Yacht Club and elsewhere, they have a collection of oyster shells just to increase awareness. I wonder, you know, file this under eco entertainment. I wonder if there could be, I'm not going to call it an exhibit, and it'd be rather passive, but, you know, just some signage and a small bin of oyster shells, some signage about that, whether it's the market house or a gumball machine dispensing proper food for the ducks instead of bread, which just bloats their bellies. And the C-Bin project, I see the opportunity, and I have for years, the opportunity for City Dock to say, yeah, it's a little skanky if you look into both corners. That's why we have the C-Bin here. Here's a little blob about oysters. And, you know, you go over to the Ellen Moyer Nature Park and they have some signage and it's interesting. And I think there's enough footage and seating space on City Dock that if we, you know, 15 or 40 feet went to some eco entertainment, maybe spread around, that's not really stepping on anything else that's going on there.
Yeah, no, I love, obviously, you know, tourism, and so I think that, you know, we should be thinking about those things. There's some mechanics we'd have to work on. I've just did an event for the oyster recovery program out at Jonas Green Park. You know, they're the ones that did the oysters at the Eastport Yacht Club. They're doing amazing things in the Severn River. So yeah, I'm looking forward to more of a presence for that stuff.
Can I file that under over to the cabinet, the Creek cabinets to work on that?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, in the same vein, we could, you know, the pumps down at City Dock, we could make it like a steampunk kind of thing and have some panel where you could see the cranks and you know, the
Right.
gears and the machine works and explain
Yeah.
why we need this climate change, you know? That could be educational. And, you know, kids love looking at that stuff.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's a field trip. Anne's nodding her head there. Right.
I'm happy to help on oyster stuff.
Yeah, we have an oyster expert on the commission now, Allison.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm an expert at eating oysters.
I just have one more thing to mention, and this has to do with access. And you mentioned you're trying to make sure that the water taxi gets to SAYC, and so we were involved in that development years ago and pressing for access there. And it did go to our Planning and Zoning Commission, and they, as a condition of approval, they did say there has to be water access, and then it got interpreted as the water taxi pulling up there, but that's not exactly water access. And I think the Planning Commission had some more specific ideas about water access. So what's happening there? And are you pressing for more than just the water taxi to come there?
I mean, because they raised the bulkhead now, and the way they've designed the piers, you know, all I know is that I haven't really been involved in it much, except to say, but there better be water access there, Brett, and specifically to help to get kids picked up on a fishing boat or a water taxi to come to you or whatever it is. It doesn't lay out that well for the water that it had before it was developed. You know, I'm not pushing for much more than that. I asked maybe put a little floating dock down there down the ladder, but it's you know, depending on the tide, it's, you know, 3, 4, 5 foot drop down a ladder to get to a floating dock. So it's not as convenient, you know, as a beach to get into the water for a kayaker. And there's obviously not going to be any parking there. So, you know, my main push is we're not going to let them, you know, have a gate unless we get water access. And I've been more specific about those things I just described. You know?
Yeah, and I think, you know, the National Park Service and Department of Interior's definition of water access isn't just getting in the water, it's walking next to the water, sitting on a bench next to the water, you know, viewing the water, interacting with the water that way. So I know that there was some, you know, that was the thought behind water access too, was, you know, people from the community used to walk through there all the time, you know, just walk around or sit or, you know, and so I think there was some representations that they would let people do that. And so are we still there? Are they going to still have access for the community to walk through or?
I mean, yeah, they have to leave an opening. You know, they've got all the signs to stay out now, and he makes the case that it's about the safety of the yard. And I said, we walk through yards all the time. That's part of the charm of Annapolis. In Eastport, you continually Edgewood Road, you walk through yards. They're generally not ever private, closed off. You know, maybe the yacht clubs are. Some of the yacht clubs, but you know, that's part of living in Annapolis. You walk through yards, so I'm not buying that. But you know, it's still private property. It's still a deal that was done before I came into office, and I'm just trying to salvage what I can.
Yeah, well, I think the Planning Commission did put some pretty specific requirements on there as a stipulation for approval. So, and you know, I think that's it just seems like it's been weakened as it's been interpreted by city departments. All right, so any other questions or comments for the mayor? All right, well, we really appreciate you coming to talk to us. And I know, you know, it's been a long time. Oh, actually, I guess it's the first time you come and talk to us, but that is why we did go and, you know, asked to meet you downtown for coffee during COVID, just so we could touch base. So really appreciate that as well, and appreciate all your efforts on the environment. And we really love working with Jackie and Racine. They're great staff members. So thank you for coming, and, you know, we'll invite you back soon.
And I want to thank you guys for all the work you do. You're the real workers. So thank you so much. Thank you for teaching me, making me better, pushing me. I need all that sort of stuff. But it's not, I haven't been to hardly any boards. I thought I really would have a chance, and I've been to, you know, of the multiple boards that we had, I've probably only gone to 2 of them, 3 of them. You know. But I'm planning on improving that in the next term.
All right. Well, thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a
Thanks
good
for your
night.
time. Thank you.
So I want to just jump back to approving our minutes because we have a quorum here now. So if anybody who just jumped on the line had any changes, please let us know. And Anne, were you able to look up that thing that I had questioned about the tree canopy?
Yes. Yeah, and Tammy and I have fixed it over email while we were actively listening. So we just need to switch the percentage for acres. That was an acre number, not a percentage.
Oh, okay. We lost 78 acres. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I thought we couldn't have lost 70% of it.
Yeah.
So I moved to approve the April minutes as amended with that change. And both Tammy and I feel like you may be mixing up the March and April attendance.
Oh, with Kate.
for
Okay.
Kate.
Okay. All right. All right. Then I'm good. Good with the minutes. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
And motioned, I'll second.
Oh, okay. Sorry. And all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so the minutes pass unanimously. Thank you. So we are at 8 o'clock. So I just wanted to go over quickly the status of the action items from the last meeting. You might have already picked it up from our talk with the mayor, but we did not finish that DEIJ memo to the mayor and council. So I promise Randy and I will get that packaged up and sent for our next meeting. Also, I know Allison and Ann had worked on this the letter for the St. Mary's Living Shoreline to the HPC. So I think you all just finished that. I think I just need to put eyes on it and then we'll send it because we approved that from last meeting. And then just wanted to mention that we held that environmental summit on the comprehensive plan on May 5th. And so we did have good attendance for that. And thanks, Allison, for presenting at that. And we got a lot of good feedback in the chat, from people we hadn't heard from before. So I think that is really going to help shape the comprehensive plan. So we will get those slides. Allison and I will work on getting the slides that she presented and Barbara Beeler presented, get them to Jackie so you can help.
Yeah, I just want to say anything you send to HPC or the council or anyone, please copy me. So that I am not surprised because they do ask me questions and
yes.
I'm just
Okay,
gonna be
sorry.
prepared.
Yes,
And yeah,
we did not intentionally leave you out, but we do appreciate the reminder. Thanks.
yeah.
We haven't said anything yet, but thanks for the reminder. We will
Yep.
include you.
I provided the mayor with a lot of talking points and he didn't get to everything, obviously, for his environmental agenda for 2021 through 2025 if he's reelected. And, focuses on improving the environment with resiliency and adapting, mitigating, preventing the impacts from climate change being the biggest one, followed by, improving water quality, improving air quality, and preservation of natural resources, as well as preserving open space and forest for human use, recreation, both passive and active, and wildlife habitat, including creation of some new parks with public access being a big part of it. And I think he mentioned, the Hawkins Cove, but also create the renaming of the Robert Eads Park and improvements there, including water access. And I'm leaving one out, but especially in areas where historically there has not been water access. And then composting is big for next year, and that's part of our zero waste goals. Zero emissions and zero waste are goals. Some of them will not, the emissions part won't be achieved within the mayor's next term if he's reelected, but we'll get those in place, such as conversion of the city fleet to EV, EV buses, smaller buses, more electric vehicle charging stations, more pedestrian and bicycle commuter and recreational paths, that sort of thing, energy efficiency initiatives, more use of solar if possible. That's something I want to work with the county on. I know the mayor's really interested on more use of solar. I'm always like, use wind too, but I don't know if wind is going to be available to us in the near term. So they're just some of the other things we're working on.
Any questions from the commission about that? So I know we did already send in our comments on the Department of Public Works building.
Mhm.
But we did want to mention, or I did want to mention anyway, that I can't remember why they told us they couldn't do solar on the roof of that building.
Oh, they said, okay, that the building is not designed to hold the panels, the weight of the panels.
Are the panels that, I mean, I thought you put panels on your house roof and that's
You
not
can.
designed for that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
can we
And, there's a lot of sheds and barns
Yeah.
and indoor riding rings, ice skating rings,
Yeah.
that are built in this very similar way, the same kind of framing.
I feel like this
And
is
that's-
a real lead by example moment that we have here. And, when the mayor of Lancaster, Mayor Gray, and he wasn't an environmentalist when he was elected.
Yep.
But when he got into office, a group went and told him that, they were digging up this park and they hadn't put stormwater capture practices into it. And I mean, they were, permit was issued, they were digging and he stopped it and said, let's redesign it so we capture all this stormwater because we know we're going to have to do that in the future anyway. So I feel like, I think this is a real lead by example moment that Gavin could grab and go, okay, we are going to do solar on the Department of Public Works building because it's not even built yet. They haven't broken ground.
Right. That would be something for you to advocate. I will bring it up with the mayor again.
Okay.
I have talked to Department of Public Works. I have made my opinion known. Actually, my comments on that project, I was a reviewer on the project, went in before it did commissions, and they thought we did them together because they matched up so well. But they did, besides solar, which they shot me down on, they did impermeable pavers. I understand that because of the truck traffic there. But also I said, why can't you do it in the staff parking?
Yeah.
It's the composition of the soil, the compaction of the soil, the clay there that is not conducive to the permeable pavers for infiltration, et cetera. So that was the reason they couldn't do it in the staff parking area. They did incorporate both mine and your comments on stormwater, as well as the EV, being EV ready inside the building and outside with charging units.
Mm-hmm. So you said we could still press for, I know they've had the hearings and all that, but if we wanted to advocate for the city to lead and put solar on that roof, should we just contact the mayor or Public Works or all of them?
I would contact the Director of Public Works, Michael Johnson, as well as the mayor. Copy me on everything so I know when you guys are sending what you're sending. I will also, there's something that's bothered me because I'll continue to press with the mayor and see if, what he thinks about it and see what he wants to do, and with the city manager as well. David Gerald may have some perspective on that because he was involved with that prior to Michael Johnson coming on board. But it may actually be an engineering or architectural, structural issue. I'm not an engineer and I'm not an architect, but I think we need a further explanation.
Right. Okay.
Have they considered a solar park that could be away from the facility but could be charged for the facility?
Excellent point, Randy. On the ground somewhere, and I don't think they did. So that is an excellent point. Something I think there's space. How they were using the space, but to me, again, I don't know. How they're planning to use the space in the future. It seems like there's plenty of green space there.
Or you could do a canopy similar to what's that, AACC. Now,
right.
They can't deny that. What?
And they have right. They have also the ones I'm sure you're familiar with. Everyone here is probably familiar with the they almost look like, they have them a lot in Florida, and I call them the palm tree panels. They use them on lights where they have their lights, and they kind of branch out, so they almost look like, sometimes they intentionally look like palm tree fronds.
Yeah, I worked in solar before any of this type stuff. That was like 5 years ago.
So, folks.
Yeah.
Solar panels in their current design, going by the decades, are 3 to 4 pounds per square foot.
Mhm.
So it's, that's not a lot. It's less than the chairs you're sitting in now. But over a large area, it does add up. And, it's not just the solar panels, but the once a decade snowfall, et cetera. My questions are, who's the architect?
It's escaping me at the moment.
Is it Hammond
It
Wilson?
maybe, sorry, what?
Is it Hammond Wilson?
I think it's Hammond Wilson. I was going to say, but don't hold me to that. I do believe it is Hammond Wilson.
And what's the approximate, and I'm just talking approximate, length and width of this building?
I don't remember. It's on the plans. You guys did see the plans, right?
Yeah, too detailed, Paul. It's 818.
I can find out, Paul, because I
No,
still have the
I'm
plans.
just looking bulb. I mean, is this bigger than a normal house?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a big warehousey shed for
Okay,
trucks.
because, being
Well, there's two buildings, Paul. There's the one for the Salt Dome building and the one for the truck maintenance. And that's attached. I think I'm getting this right. That one is attached to the administrative building.
okay.
There's two buildings on site and then
Okay,
a
so
big parking lot in between.
It's of healthy size.
Yes.
Okay, because, it's not worth putting solar on something too small. But, yeah, I know this is on the record because it's being typed, but I know the principals at Hammond Wilson, and it seems like when we speak to them and other architects, it's always, oh, we priced it out, it's not competitive. And it's like they're using numbers from 5 years ago. All of you know the price of solar has dropped a ton. I think, and I know this is on record, it's just one more item or issue that slows them down on designing things or gets in the way of doing great tasteful work for cost value and put on all the great things they do. But it is one more ball they have to juggle. And I agree with you guys completely. At some point, we got to stop and say, okay, you got to juggle 3 balls instead of 2.
Right.
We need, it's been going on for too long. So I think this might be a good time to put our foot down. And as far as cost goes, it's really easy, just like they're doing with the garage in Annapolis Solar Park. Hand this off to private developers, and they can put it all on. They can put it on the roof, and as long as their costs, similar to the Annapolis Solar Park, as long as the cost the solar developers selling into the city is less than what they're buying from BG&E, we get back to, one of my favorite terms, scummy. We're saving them money, let alone we're going to have some trucks stored in that area. Is this correct?
Right.
Mhm.
So not tomorrow, but 10 years from now, they're going to be electric trucks. And when grids go down and Colonial Pipeline gets shut down and, fill in the blanks of whatever disaster there is,
Yeah.
we've got trucks and snow plows and emergency city facilities with direct solar. So I don't care how big the snowstorm is, 36 hours later, it's blue sky. And there's just way too many good things to
Right.
not. I'm happy. I have not been as active lately, but I'm happy to put my foot down or my effort into this one.
Yeah, so without going into further detail, why don't I suggest that we do take a position on this and just let's take a vote on this to take a position to press the city to
Defend their state.
put solar on the new Department of Public Works building and then ask them for details of why they can't, and then mention all those ideas that were raised here by Randy and Paul.
I would just say, I would support a letter that encouraged the building to be, the roof to be solar ready. But as Paul's pointing out, a power purchase agreement with a third-party developer might be a better way of getting it done. You wouldn't be able to claim the solar attributes from the power right away, but like a 10-year lease and then the solar attributes revert to the city, gets paid for. It might make more sense for the city for it to not be done by us, and to follow that model. So I wouldn't want us to sort of be
Prescribe
really
one way or the other, right?
Right,
Okay.
but rather
maybe we
to
just lay out all
explore the
those
options.
Options, right? But we want them to do it something with solar on that, whether they do it or they do it with a third party. Randy, you had your hand up.
I was just gonna say it's our responsibility. We are the environmental commission, so I just feel like whatever this facility presents, any lacking or lack of there in any way that it designed that is not as state of the art and as tip top sustainable protocol as possible, then it kind of is like our fault, because we are the environmental commission and we kind of have an input, or we have the scientific know-how to make the case and improve some of these different purposes and reasons for some of these activities. So I'm down to throw my 2 cents on this, because I'm with Paul. I'm willing to dig deep on this, because essentially this is our reputation in a sense, on the line here, and not just for solar, but literally every single facet of the facility, from the water functioning to zero energy or zero energy bill to everything. And I don't think that it's really an opportunity for a space to really make excuses, because we're the ones who kind of have the ability to figure it out.
Right. We did do a really thorough analysis and led that, and we pressed for every single option. But so I can't remember why they told us they couldn't do solar, but I just think it's something worth bringing up again, and bring up all those options that were mentioned here. Yeah.
And lastly, Jackie, the mayor mentioned about a Green Works program or project or something. I was just wondering if you knew anything about that. I've never heard of that.
Oh, okay. I thought you did, Randy. Yeah. So he started this. He had the shirt on. I guess he was going to show it to us.
I need a shirt.
Yeah. Well, we'll get you a shirt then. So they initiated this recently, this Greenworks, and the idea is to get kids involved with the environment with hands-on experiences, and sometimes it'll be more like job skills, job opportunities, career paths. They could get involved in like tree planting and landscaping, and water quality monitoring, that sort of thing. What they did is they recruited children. I think the No Harm team was involved with it, and they recruited like kids from lower income neighborhoods to participate. And after having that, the first one was at the West Street cleanup, and while I was there, there was a lot of trash collected there and recyclables. And one thing that we didn't do that I said that we need to do with the kids ahead of time, so I was kind of doing it on the fly, was educating them as to what was recyclable and what was not, and try to keep it real simple. And we needed to mark the recycling containers very clearly with what went in them. And I was kind of, piecing it out with the kids because they were throwing things everywhere. But also they had originally planned to have the kids there for 5 hours, and they were giving them these $100 Amazon gift cards. 5 hours not working. We ended up not having them there more than 3 hours. So I said, if we had them there for a 2.5 hour project and we gave them $50, then, as the mayor was saying, we could have doubled the kids there involved. And because the attention span is just not there for that long. We also want them involved with trail building, with more the Mid-Atlantic off-road enthusiasts, the bike group that helped us with the trails in Waterworks Park, and we'll be helping in Truxton Park. So get them involved with that kind of project too. And then they can come back and bike there, that once they helped build the trails. So that's the project he's talking about. And you can get, if you want to get involved with that, that would be great too.
Yeah. Thanks, Jackie.
It's a new project. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that will dovetail with some of the ideas Randy and I had about exposing kids to careers and actually, hooking them up with, all the agencies we have in DC. They're looking for people with that kind of experience.
And to that end, I think I've mentioned this before, but last summer I connected Archie Trader with Tom Gay of the Severn River Association. The Severn River Association created a living classroom program where they get kids out on the water. They do water quality sampling. They measure submerged aquatic vegetation and other things. I'm not sure what other directions they're going to take it, but Archie and Tom went out on the water together and they started talking about a plan for kids involved in the summer programs and after school programs during the summer. I mean, not in the summer, when they're in school, to get them out on the water with the floating classroom. And I reminded Tom, you just got to follow up with Archie on that and press them to get, because COVID intervened and then, they didn't get it going last year. So hopefully they will start that this year. But I see that as an extension of this green workforce program, is this connection with
One
Southern.
place you want to add to your list, not forget, is Wild Kid Acres in Edgewater. It's the only minority-owned petting zoo and farm that the county public school system is using a lot to take kids out and teach them and embrace them about, the environment, agriculture, livestock, etc. They have alpacas, They got all kinds of stuff. But it's neat because it's a minority-owned farm, and it's maybe the only one in the county, I think.
Randy, what's the name of the farm?
Wild Kid Acres. I'm a board member on it as well.
Wild Kid as in children?
Yep, Wild Kid Acres.
For your goats.
Shameless
Poor
plug, shameless plug.
Yeah,
I know where Kate's going to be taking Colin to wear off some of that energy.
Yeah.
right, and Anne and Francis. So let me just get back to this. We were close to having a motion to write a letter about the getting some kind of solar or solar ready for the Department of Public Works. So can we entertain a motion for that, just to put in a letter to the Department of Public Works Director and the mayor, copying Jackie, just to mention all those different options for solar, that even, off the roof, on the roof, or having it solar ready?
Could I interject for just a sec?
Sure.
I realized as we were talking about this is the third thing that we wanted to chat with Mike Johnson about. I think, Bevan, you wanted to follow up on his op-ed, and we wanted to hear a report on the stormwater fee. And I was reminded that when he came and briefed our commission on that project, it was like his second week in the job. So I wonder if it might be nice to invite him back for a more general chat about a number of things.
Okay.
And I don't know how urgent it is to address the building. Maybe we have to do both things at the same time, but it does feel like we have other things on our sort of Mike Johnson list.
Right, and maybe we should write the letter just so we get it out there and get them thinking about it, and invite him to come talk to us too. Yeah, good idea. Do you agree with that? The order of things there. I just think.
Yeah, I think it's fine to do
yeah.
both at the same time, but I think it might be nice to invite him just because it's been a while.
Right. Okay. Yeah, great. So then, do we have a motion to write this letter? Advocating for solar on the roof of public.
I motion a letter to the city to increase it, to do what you're talking about. And in general, in all future larger business buildings, they ought to take a look at this stuff and have clear reasons why it's not viable.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we add, and I'm totally okay if we just stick to the solar. I know we have to, take baby steps, and but in this letter, I mean, it may be an opportunity to drive a little bit further than just solar, but also some other aspects. I mean, I haven't identified a list right now, but maybe that's something we can say, or we can think about other ways, even if big or small. Just different.
We should send you the first letter we wrote, because it was very comprehensive about renewable energy and water savings and permeable pavements and like everything we could think of. So we pretty much got.
Randy, my question or comment was sort of similar to that. I was wondering if there is any requirements for city-owned properties to meet a certain, say, LEED certification standard.
I believe there is. Yeah.
That's sort of comprehensive and it kind of shorthand for all of those things.
Yeah.
If you want to take a look at those and see
I
which
think there
ones.
already is a standard.
It's
So
silver LEED, silver.
so it meets that. So, but we felt it didn't. It could, incorporate
I mean,
something more.
Or if we
We- I
feel
think-
it needs to be LEED Gold or Platinum,
Yeah, and that's one of Rob's bills that he was not going to work
They
on.
did, I know that they did, Public Works did try to get to gold. That was a goal of theirs. I think in the cost benefit analysis, they didn't get there. So it ended up being silver.
Do you know what the difference was that was needed in the cost to make it to go to platinum, maybe?
I don't, Randy.
but Jackie, is that something that's already on the books in terms of in the code? That
Yeah,
city
it's in the
buildings have
code.
to meet at least
Mhm.
silver?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
I mean, we could, Allison, this commission might recommend that they change that. And things have, because things have changed so much that I don't recall when that went on the books, but technology is changing all the time.
yeah. And that
The
was one of
ability to get to gold or platinum, it's not as hard as it once was.
right. And
This-
oftentimes it's not more costly too, if you just if that's, what you put out as the requirements of your bid. Contractors can meet it. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's really just about the money that you got to spend. That's really what it boils down to.
Right.
So
And that's-
you want to be platinum, you got to pay to play. It's like
Yeah.
gambling.
Well, but
Gambling.
you guys, I know I'm repeating myself, but scummy, there are areas out there where renewables are less expensive. And we ought to really be helping to steer, because we're a commission partially because of our expertise. And we ought to be steering the city to areas where renewables or environmentally better items can actually, there ought to be a scoring, and plenty of times the renewables will be less expensive. And if it's a tie game, they'll probably give the nod to doing it the more environmentally friendly way, but we ought to be quantifying the cost on all these items and not just trying to say we wear Birkenstocks and we want platinum. We should be, digging down into saying, look, your life cycle cost for more insulation in a building will save
Right.
you in the long run.
Right. And Randy, maybe that's where we can pull in the interns that you mentioned. If we can get them to do some life cycle cost analysis for us, that'd be great. Because that's where, we lack capacity to do all that stuff.
Mhm.
We all have jobs, we all have kids and other things,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then yeah, agreed.
Okay, so I think we're still on the motion to do the letter to the city on Department of Public Works and future buildings of incorporating solar with all the ideas. Do we still have a motion for that? Paul had it on the floor.
Bevan, can I get some clarification? This is what I have, and you can tell me if I can add on to it. Mr. Murphy moved that the AEC draft a letter to the Director of Public Works and Mayor discussing the various options to make the building solar ready, and invite Director Johnson to an upcoming meeting to discuss the status of other items previously discussed.
Right, and I think be like urging the city to either put solar on or make the roof solar ready. And then or consider other solar options like the car canopy or a solar array on the grounds or some other option like that. And
The roof's the best place to go. Carports are
Right.
wonderful, but they just cost money to pay people to put metal in the ground and put a roof over it. And, we don't want to be taking
Yeah.
away green space. We don't
right,
want to
well,
cut down
we don't need to debate it now, but that's what we wanted to put in the letter. So and invite them to come talk to us about it. Or Mike Johnson, Director Johnson.
So
So that-
so that would be carports, and what else?
It was a solar array on the ground or a car canopy or some other option that's not on the roof. If it,
And AACC is a
Structurally.
good example of that. If they
Yeah.
want to see a living, breathing example of it, maybe even could contact them and get some cost ratio stuff like cost per square footage, etc. But I'm sure AACC would gladly provide that info to this government agency.
yeah, so we just have a bunch of different options we wanted to mention. roof or off-roof options. Urging the city to do that. So is that clear to everybody now? What's on the floor?
Also, if you could put in there, we want remote control janitor things that fly around and clean up all the dirt. You know what I'm saying? We're not
I
gonna
don't want
save
that at my
everything.
house.
Right. You know the little round things? No, I'm just joking.
Okay, so I think we still have Paul's motion on the floor. Paul, is that renewed your motion?
Yes,
Okay. And do we have a second?
Second that.
Okay. And a vote? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, great, thanks.
When you're laying out the different options, you can put the one in there about third party, doing it instead of the city too. These are things
Right,
that they didn't consider, obviously. And the fact that they can also do them, I'm not sure how they're doing the lighting in the parking lot there. But if they have streetlights, there's solar panels attached to streetlights.
Right, okay. All right. All right, I'm happy to write the letter, but we'll run it by you all to put the details in, especially about the third party option. So I'll just make it a general letter and then run it by you all first. Okay, moving on to the next thing, development review. We don't have Kate here, and Randy, I'm not sure, do you have anything? We had talked about that Cheston Avenue Street End Park, and then they were going to do a bulkhead, and we wanted to find out if they had considered or looked at options to do a living shoreline. So
I was at that public meeting and they had considered it, but I think they ruled it out just because of it just wasn't feasible with the channel at that spot. I was told there was a lot of like pushback from some people, like Rob Schnabel and some others that were also at that meeting. But I think, it just didn't seem like that was feasible for that project.
Okay, because of where it was located and
Yeah,
things like that.
and Jackie, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I spoke with Beth Bellis about that some time ago, and she said
Okay.
that there's also depth considerations there for the living shoreline. And there was something else about the topography there. I mean, with the not making it feasible.
Buried cables. Jeff, was it buried cables?
That one might be buried cables. When we talked about 10 different street end parks, that might have been one of them.
Yeah, I was looped in on some correspondence between some folks and Rob Schnabel, and I think that was one of the considerations that came up. One of the things that I think is just, it's not an issue that is unique to the city. It's something that is going on all over the place. I think that there are a lot of, I won't call them loopholes, but there are a lot of ways to get around the Living Shorelines Act. In Maryland, I think we saw that in our St. Mary's presentation. We had someone from DNR sitting in, sort of hinting at that. So I think our commission should continue to push for that, because it seems like the depth thing is something where you can just put in depth to get an immediate waiver and move on. There are, not specific to this project, because I know there were other considerations, but as things continue to come before the commission, I wonder if we might want to, consider writing a letter as the commission or individually, just to support any changes that may be necessary to button up some of the things
Right.
with that act.
All right, yeah, that's a good thing to consider. Maybe we'll put that on our priority list and look into that.
And I think
that
I had
Allison?
suggested, if they are gonna if they have to stick with the hardened, the bulkheads, maybe at least try putting in like a floating wetland or something. Just anything, oyster floats, maybe.
And even within hardened, an offshore revetment is going to be better than a bulkhead. So, there's there are varying levels of bad that can be minimized.
So, do you mean an offshore revetment like instead of a bulkhead or what? Okay, and what is that exactly?
It's like a breakwater.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, maybe we can talk to Alderman Savage about that and look at maybe making our law a little stricter than the state law, which sounds like it has some huge loopholes in there.
I would really benefit from some more education around this. And I wonder if, we could have a meetup sometime where we could do a walk, and Allison or Jeremy or whoever could give us a little more of sort of technical background and some of the considerations. Or we could invite someone to speak at one of these meetings. I'd be really interested.
I think that'd be a great idea, an educational field trip we could go on. But that doesn't have to be open meeting because it's just we're learning about something.
We could go visit if the campus is open to outside people now, we could go look at the St. John's Living Shoreline.
Yeah, we're allowed to walk there.
Yeah, it's open. I walk it almost every day. So yeah, so we can coordinate that offline. So that's a great idea, Anne, thanks. So moving on to legislation, we don't have any more development, do we? Development restoration review? I don't think we do. We'll check in with Kate and see if there's anything bubbling up. For legislation, I said we had the Climate Resilience Authority just referred to us on Monday. So I wanted to know if anybody else wanted to help me review that. For legislation review, I have me, Jeremy, Randy, and Allison. So should we just stick with that and we'll review it for the group and provide comments?
Yeah, I started reading it.
Okay.
And yeah, I have some questions. I know I saw Jackie's staff report, which we had on the Google Drive. So I think she had a lot of the same immediate suggestions that I was thinking, but yeah, I'll work with you offline.
All right.
And
all right, thanks. Jackie, do you know when I get these referrals from the city, I ask them what the deadline is and they tell me there's no deadline. So, but there is a deadline because we do want the subcommittees to, have comments when they're looking at it. So
it hasn't gone to all the committees yet. Environment, it's been to Financial Advisory Commission, who had a lot of comments on it, and Fred Sussman had a lot of comments on it. There's some things that I did not address in my staff report, because we talked about them with the county attorneys, our Office of Law, and us. We held several meetings on this legislation, and some of the suggestions we were told were premature, and those things would be worked out. Being an attorney myself, I preferred to see a lot more specificity in that document, but I had to write my staff report off of what I was provided in the end. So, Fred raised a lot of the points that I had brought up, and one of the big issues is the representation. The city has 3 members on the Resilience Authority. The county has 9. Who funds it? How much money does the city put in versus the county? But that's not part of the Resilience Authority establishment. That's down the line. But people are thinking about that. It seems like the county executive is does have a lot more say with the mayor's input. One suggestion that Fred made, which was kind of interesting, was that perhaps it should be 4 city, 4 county, and then the rest of those members, those 8 members, select the next 4. Something that I had raised earlier, which is not in legislation, is, and I think somebody here raised it earlier, what are the credentials for someone to serve on the Resilience Authority? It's very broad, very, very broad.
I didn't see any.
It's basically you're a good person of good
and they can
credibility,
be paid well. They can be paid as well. So that turns
they can be paid
patronage job,
paid up to $5,000, it says.
Okay. How much?
That's for the Resilience Authority. Now, the salary for the director and the CFO have not been established yet.
Right.
Um,
And also, I mean, it's not clear to me, like, are they selecting the jobs that are going to get done? Or is the county and the city selecting them and turning to them and saying, fund it? It really doesn't say.
It doesn't say exactly. And the thinking behind it is what I'm told is that the staff from the county and the city will collaborate and talk about projects that they want to see happen and what they think are important and why, and submit those, make recommendations to the Resilience Authority that then makes the decisions and then has to come up with a way to fund them.
So how does this, is there similar legislation in front of the county council right now, or are
Yes.
they letting the city pass it
No,
first?
no,
Like,
no. This was developed together so that
do they have to
they-
be like exactly the
I'm sure they have to
same?
be
They don't-
identical. I'm sure
they have to, it says that they have to be, it doesn't say identical, but they have to, in the main crux of it, how it works has to be pretty much identical. I mean, some words might be different here and there, but the main parts of it have to be identical to make it work. Now,
Okay, so
both of them will
whoever
have to
passes it last will probably just have to do one last set of amendments to make it consistent then probably.
yeah,
Whoever's-
and the county process is longer than the city process. So what I told the environmental committee and the financial advisory commission was that there's time for amendments and time to tweak. And I think they wouldn't, the county wouldn't even be done with theirs, couldn't even be done until September or something like that, whereas the city could be faster. But there were a lot of comments, especially from the Financial Advisory Commission. So there's time to get in comments and make suggestions on it. So there will be a reciprocal clause in each of these pieces of legislation that say it does not take effect unless the county passes their ordinance and vice versa.
And see, the one thing that I'm concerned about is I'm wondering how this will affect our bond rating, because we are at the limit of our bond debt right now, our borrowing limit. And when the rating agencies look at our city, they're looking at how much we're all paying in taxes and how much more we can pay. And if we're all getting charged a fee as well, they're going to consider that as well. And like when I asked Teresa Sutherland in the last administration, they tried to pass this through the budget bill, this Resilience Authority. And I asked her, what can this authority do that the city cannot already do? And the answer was nothing. So the city can already do everything that this authority is doing. I know we don't have capacity to do it. And I do think regionalization is better, but we don't have a very good track record with getting our open space funds from the county. So entering into this with like no operating agreement about how we're going to operate together, that gives me huge heartburn. And also, we have a bonding and a capacity or bonding limit because, people in this city can only afford to pay so much. So I do think we are going to be charged a fee for the jobs that are getting done. And it does say that they can do that with the approval of city council. So, so anyways, a lot of concerns there, but I would love to see what Fred Sussman wrote about it as well. So we will review that, and I will ask Director Johnson for the stormwater fee report. We've been talked about the comprehensive plan stuff. The draft is supposed to be done by August, and then we can look at that and respond to that and give more input. The Tucker Street boat ramp access, that got passed, and then that got recommitted, didn't it, Jackie? I thought I read that in the newspaper, so I don't know what happened with that. I thought they were requiring permits for boats with motors on them only. And then they also allowed county residents to get permits to launch there.
I don't know.
Okay, so I'll have to check on that because I thought Fred recommitted that. Fred Alderman Pion. I'll have to check on that.
Mhm,
But I mean, we already provided our comments for that, but,
mhm.
all right, I'll check on that and write an email. I know I promised this was going to only last till 8:30 and we're almost at 9 o'clock right now. So I don't know if, Randy, you have anything for the Jedi report? I did change it to Jedi. So,
Yeah, just just that I had shared some resources, some DEIJ resources to the group, a couple things throughout the since between the last time we met and today. So also I have this speaking engagement coming up I was asked to be a speaker on a panel at the Nature City Forum 2021. So that should be cool. I'll be on a panel with the mayor for Baltimore City, talking about environmental issues and how we can create social equity to address some of these climate change and resiliency issues. I was contacted by Archie Trader. He asked me to give him some input on his summer pop-up camps for Rexton Parks. So I gave him some tips on that in regards to environmental scope that he's going for. Also, still trying to synthesize the draft memo for the mayor and the council in regards to some of these DEIJ possible initiatives, et cetera. I think that we have plenty to go with. I think now we just need to, if people could go in there and just maybe just give some input, and then we can try to cut it down to maybe 10 things or 5 things or something like that.
yeah, and I think we were supposed to like group them into like things or things for the city or.
And I met with the county councilman to discuss some of the deeper relationships that could be had amongst, county, city, state lines in regards to environmental sustainability. And again, like I said, I kind of pitched the idea to have one rep come and present reports bi-monthly. Maybe the commission could come up with a list of reporting items that would be helpful to the commission in regards to what these other partnering agencies could bring or report on when they come.
Oh, which partner? Oh, the county agencies?
Yeah, county and state so far.
Right.
It's just
Yeah,
where I
was thinking that when you mentioned that, I was thinking, we do have the other restoration groups from the county on the Rivers cabinet, but we don't have anybody really from the county there. So it might be good to have them just come as a guest once in a while. And we did want somebody from the County Environmental Commission to come to one of our meetings to connect us. So maybe we can set that up for our next meeting.
Yeah. So maybe, I don't know who would kind of want to be involved, who contact who, how that transpires as far as coordination goes.
Yeah, I think we do have a liaison assigned to the county commission. I think that's
Cool.
Jeremy, so.
And I invited Vince Leggett to be a guest keynote speaker for a 2-day orientation for my new job at the Chesapeake Research Consortium. And he came and did a presentation on Blacks in the Chesapeake and kind of gave the historical and cultural context, the underlying things in regards to the Chesapeake Bay. And Chesapeake Bay 101 is what he gave. And so that was neat. It was a neat opportunity to work with him, have him. He's done a lot of work before with NOAA and things like that, and Cards Beach. So
Great.
that's all I got, really.
That's something that a presentation that we could now read or you could share with us.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was recorded or not, but yeah, I can check on that. So.
I'd appreciate that. Someone not from here. I have not lots of them. Thanks.
Say what?
As someone not from here, I am
Oh,
always
Yeah, I'll send you some links too. He's done
Yeah.
he's done a
Or
lot
maybe
of
we
work.
can invite him to talk to the commission. That'd be fun.
I think that would be a great idea
Yeah.
because we're going for grants and stuff now in regards to DEIJ
Uh-huh.
to do assessments of entire environmental agencies.
Oh, great.
And what we're doing is giving them a full breadth research and looking at what we can provide them for recommendations for how they can better outreach and engage with communities of color. So we just put in a grant, me and Vince together with Watershed Stewards Academy. Well, Vince was the submitting part, and I just kind of gave him some tips, some DEIJ tips and stuff to look for and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, and that's actually for Replant Anne Arundel. So if we get if he's awarded this grant, essentially he would be providing a full scope of Replant Anne Arundel's successes and challenges as it relates to engaging with minority-owned contract vendors for environmental restoration for tree plantings. So I assume that some of that data could be used to add to Replant Annapolis as it develops, and they could use that in regards to their development of that maybe.
Yeah, okay, that sounds great. So I think it'd be great to get our memo done for the city and then, share that with the city and then share it with Vince too, and then invite him to come talk to us.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. And also have the county environmental commission come to one of our meetings too.
Yeah.
Set that
Cool.
up for the next couple meetings.
Yep.
All right, great. And so we have like 1 minute left for climate change resiliency adaptation. And we did talk to Jackie about the resilience plan. And I know Allison mentioned we do want to see that woven into the comp plan. But so Jackie, are you working on a resiliency plan that's going into the comp plan, or is this a separate thing, or there's some resiliency goals and things like that?
So I've been talking to Sally and Eric about how we think the resilience plan should occur. I think the comp plan will be done before the resilience plan. That doesn't mean that it can't be attached to it as an appendix later. I kind of shifted gears and started working more with planning and zoning on the comp plan and the environmental components of that. The environmental committee had comments. You guys had comments. We've been getting comments for a lot of different people. So I'm helping them to weave that in there and address those concerns that have been brought up and where they fit, where they don't fit, where they should be in an appendix or something like that. And so that's where, because we have to get the comp plan done, I'm helping them make it better as far as the environment. Then I'll turn back to the resilience plan. And I think some of the work that I do with them will feed the resilience plan anyway, because it's broader than just the environment.
Yeah. But I mean, I think, it's part of how we grow and build and develop is, really have an impact on resiliency and having open land.
Did you guys ever see the draft resilience plan? Yes, I thought so.
I maybe you shared it with me. I don't know if
Because you were on the
it.
committee.
Yeah.
I think I saw it wasn't a plan though. It was just sort of a survey of what we
Outline.
have,
It was more like an outline and some information. So
And
Sally
just
tweaked
any
it.
Water in it at all. That's what I
I'm
remember.
going to start tweaking it, and then when it gets to a better draft form, we
Right.
can start working on it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll continue to talk to you about that and getting some of those goals, at least in the comp plan. If not the whole plan, there's got to be some mention of resilience.
So remember to send the presentations to
Right,
me
okay.
and to Eric and Sally.
Right. Okay. Yep. I've got that on my to-do list. All right. So we're gonna
Then I
do.
can follow up with them on that.
Okay. So we're gonna do the one letter about the solar, and then send you the slides and invite Vince Leggett and invite the county commission, Kate Fritz, to a future meeting.
Bevan, specifically when when Kate comes to present, can we add, do you think it would be appropriate to ask her to sort of summarize some of their top takeaways from the county's comp plan
Okay, yeah.
with an environmental aspect?
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. All right. All right, any other comments or questions or ideas for the group? If not, we are ready to adjourn at our regular time. Sorry, I thought it was gonna make an hour and a half this week, but it didn't happen. But we did have a really good and nice candid discussion with the mayor, so I thought that was important to let that.
Good job facilitating that, Bevan.
Thank you, thanks. All right, well, if we're ready, I think we're just gonna adjourn. I don't think we need to vote to adjourn. I'm just gonna say we're gonna adjourn. It's 9:04 and the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody, and we'll meet you again next month.